welcome to A Seat at the Table. I'm Deneen Milner.
I'm Christine White, and today we're talking about women in the civil rights movement.
And I'm Monica Pearson. Whenever we hear about the civil rights movement, we hear the names of prominent men, but there were many women fighting for the cause too. And today we're joined by one of those women, Xernona Clayton. And I am so excited because Xernona made it possible for me to be on the air. Xernona was the first minority to have a daily primetime show in the South.
Yes.
You opened a lot of doors, but what people also don't know is her involvement in civil rights. When you came to Atlanta, you became literally the best friend of Coretta Scott King because to raise money for the movement, she would do performances and you went with her.
Yes, she had wanted to do something to raise funds for the organization. And I don't know, a lot of people don't know she was a trained concert artist. She went to the New England Conservatory and got her degree, but wanted to use it. And then my husband at the time, my first husband was the public relations director. We had been brought here.
Let me know if you knew that about Coretta Scott King, because I didn't.
To work for Dr. King. Well, he had. And he suggested to Coretta that I could help her on her concert tours. And so we met on the phone and talked about what I would do for her and how the format of the show would go. And then we started traveling. And so I met her, the first trip we took is, she met me in California, and we did a West Coast tour. And we were on the road for 11 days and nights. And she said after that first trip, she said, you know what? I think we're going to be long, long friends. She said, if women can stay together, sleep together, eat together, talk together, and not fall out, then obviously we're going to be good friends.
Right.
And that was the beginning of our friendship. What it lasted until her end. I was very fond of her and not excited because of who she was, but excited and pleased for her because of what she had done.
There's so many of these stories that we've never heard. I wonder, why do you think that we've heard some of these, we haven't heard these stories about the impact that women have had in the civil rights movement?
Well, I think you have to remember this was in the early 60s, late 50s and early 60s. And those were the days of chauvinism that everybody practiced it. Because when I tell stories like that, they say, was Martin Luther King a chauvinist? I said, no, he wasn't.
You know what's crazy about that is the fact they want to put the title of strength on a woman, but yet you don't want to show why she had to be strong or what did she do to become strong. Let me know in the comments if you know any civil rights stories like that.
Every man was. It was like, that was the tenor of the times.
Right.
You know, but we really didn't feel in those years we didn't feel like we were sublimated and put down. It's sort of like, well, I grew up in the church, and growing up in the church, the women's role is very, very clear,
right,
and pretty important.
Yes.
And if you looked at the job we did as women, they would sometimes look like domesticated types. But there were important things like getting together for the church suppers and having a dinner if somebody dies and the family gatherings. Those are important things to do. So women had the energy,
right,
the temerity to do it,
right,
and everybody did it. So once you see all that taking place in the church, it was easy then to carry that beyond the church.
Sure.
But I think, when I look back, and I'll make it brief, at the March on Washington, even though Dorothy Height helped to get so many people there and was one of the organizers, a woman was not allowed to speak.
And if you want to know anything about Dorothy Height, I will make sure I link a video to this one.
Yeah.
Well, the times again. But you know what? She was such a beautiful woman. She understood she didn't compete for the space. Her value was clear to her, that I'm here to do some of this thinking and some of this planning. And when you feel secure, you don't worry about the other things. At the time, it wasn't until the movement,
Right.
when women took over to make it a movement, did we have those issues of competition. It just wasn't. She was a thinker,
Right.
and she could deliver. She was a deliverer. And once people recognize that you can do what you say you can do, whatever you purport to be, then be that.
Right.
It will work well. And so we lived through it, and we're happy in the process.
Now, I'm from New York,
Yes.
and I've been living here in the South for about 12 years, going on 13 years. And my mom, who was from the South, and my dad from the South too, used to always say there's such a difference between racism in the North and racism in the South. And that in the South, it's more in your face. In the North, things happen behind your back, and you have no idea that you've been discriminated against.
You know, Dave Chappelle got a comedy where he talks about the difference between racism in the North as well as in the South. Let me know in the comments, have you experienced them both? And is she correct? Is it more in your face when it comes to the South?
Until you don't have what it is that you were looking for or what you were going for. What in those days was a difference between the way the civil rights movement impacted the North versus its impact in the South?
Well, one thing is perception, because I had a woman who was working for me when I lived in Chicago. She said, you know, I'm ready to go back to Mississippi. I said, really? Because we found her a nice apartment. I thought she was living comfortably. And I said, why do you want to go back there? And so she said, in the South, I knew my limitations.
Yep.
Wow.
In the North, I don't know where to go. I'm probably going down the wrong street, going in the wrong door, doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And it frightens me. This woman was in her late 40s.
Right.
And she said she was scared to death every day.
Yeah.
That she felt more comfortable in Mississippi than she did in the North. So we thought of it as freedom, because Harriet Tubman showed us with the Underground Railroad and all the movement going north that there was freer up there. But it depends on who you were, because people live large in the South.
Right.
You know, I have to add, when you said Mississippi, it made me think of Fannie Lou Hamer, who said, you know, I am sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Right, yeah.
And the fact that here was a woman who was literally beaten within an inch of her life while she was in police custody.
And when it comes to Fannie Lou Hamer, I will tell you one thing. She is the embodiment of strength. Let me know in the comments, what do you know about her?
With billy clubs. Why was it, and you, thanks be to God, you were never arrested. How did you all balance who was going to be arrested and go march of the women, and who was going to stay and be organizers and support the family?
Well, Dr. King really didn't want us out on what we call in the trenches, those of us who worked at SCLC. But you see, what people didn't realize is there was so much work to do other than just marching,
Right.
as important as that was. But we had to get ready for the marches. You know, there was so much preparation that had to take place. And I was just talking earlier about you can't just get out and march. You got to have permits.
Right.
You got to know where you're going. You got to have a plan. The planning was strategic. And that was so good about Dr. King. He did not do anything without a plan. And that's how I can see now people get in trouble, because you got to have a plan. You got to have a starting point and an ending, and hopefully you get the desired results. There was so much to do, like we had to get water for people who are going to march. In the summer, it's hot. You got to have water. They got arrested. We got to have bail bonds money. That was one of my jobs, is to help get the bail bonds. And then they get hurt, got taken to the hospital.
Right.
We knew that there were jobs to do and stages to implement, and we just did it. And that was before, you know, that preceded the women's movement, when people were smart enough to say, let's do something about the treatment of women.
Right.
But before that, I guess you don't know you're mistreated until you just do what you have to do.
Well, you know, I can remember growing up in Louisville, Kentucky. I didn't go to my first integrated school until I was in the 3rd grade, and I was the integration.
Wow.
And I can remember my mother, Dr. King's brother, A.D., was actually running a church in Louisville,
Yes.
Mount Zion.
Mount Zion.
And I can recall so clearly how the city was very concerned. They wanted to march for equal accommodations, but there was also the fear that once people leave, what are you going to be left with? But what you said about the church, it was the women in the churches who came forward and said, we're not going to take this anymore. We won't do this. We will sit in. And I think that ingrained in me at a very early age that you have to take risk in order to get things that you know are yours.
And then also what we're failing to include in the whole picture here is that you have to have a commitment to make life better. We didn't like it,
Right.
but we wanted to change it. So you get in there, you just sit down. I'm thinking, I'm looking at your table. This is what Dr. King used to talk about all the time. I'm feeling so comfortable here because he did the table scene so effectively in so many ways. For an example, he would say, if reasonable men, and he used the term men, would sit at the table together and reason together, you would be amazed at the unimaginable results you could get therefrom. Sitting at the table of brotherhood, sisterhood. Why not use it as a leveler? Yeah.
But when you went on the air, you changed the feelings of a lot of people. And that led later to you being a vice president with Turner, to starting the Trumpet Awards that are now on Bounce, to starting that International Walk of Fame. As a woman in the civil rights movement, what was your goal always, and what is your goal now?
I knew that I was going to keep moving, marching toward the day of victory for us all. That I knew that one of these days, if I kept fighting and working and doing my part, I was going to help make that day come. And so that's part of the bragging rights you just heap on yourself. And Monica, when you talk about that television opportunity, the best thing about that program was not that I was just a pretty face. Not bad, I didn't think.
Fine, as some might say.
But the opening the door,
Right.
the opening the door
Yes.
was the moment for me.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
When, Monica, I mean, we never would have had a Monica,
Right.
maybe, unless we had the door open. There's so many people out here with talents.
Mm-hmm.
When you close the door, you miss it. Some
Right.
good people.
Right.
Open the door and let us all come in.
We have to take a quick break, but don't go anywhere because when we come back, we're going to highlight some of the key women of the civil rights movement you rarely hear about.
I asked the mayor, Mayor West, do you feel that it's wrong to discriminate against a person solely on the basis of his race or color?
I could not agree that it was morally right.
The following day, the Nashville Tennessean ran a headline and said, integrate counters, mayor. The movement had a way of reaching inside you and bringing out things that even you didn't know were there. You didn't have to be a man to be courageous.
Welcome back to A Seat at the Table. Our guest, Xernona Clayton, is still with us. And in this segment, we're going to talk about some of the women of the civil rights movement you may not know. And Xernona Clayton knows one of the women I'm going to talk about, Dorothy Bolden.
Oh, she would just call the mayor. She'd say, now, Mr. Mayor, you know that's not right. I mean, she'd go to him direct. She didn't talk about him. She'd talk to him.
Right.
But she said, you know what? We don't want to be called maids no more. We want to be called household technicians.
Yes, ma'am.
And she pronounced it so clearly, household technicians. And when she started her campaign to change the terminology,
Right.
first, and then that would help, to change other things.
But
And
you
she
know
would
what I
preach
guess
to
was
those women.
exciting about her is she got 10,000 women, some 10,000 women to sign up as members of the Domestic Workers Union, but they could only be a member of the union if they registered to vote. And what a lot of people don't know about her, we almost didn't have MARTA, because the first time the vote came up for MARTA, Dorothy Bolden said, unless you have routes coming into the black community, we will not have MARTA. And it failed the first time because they did not. And then the second time it came up for a vote, it did pass. But what I think she'll be remembered most for, maids were making $1.25 a day. A day. white women who were doing the same work were getting the minimum wage. Dorothy Bolden said, we're not having it anymore. By the time she got them organized and pressed, they got Social Security benefits, they got the minimum wage, and she even started training so that people learned how not to be maids, but household technicians.
Right.
So, but this is a woman you knew, I knew, but most people don't know.
She did get recognition because
Oh, yes.
Wow.
downtown, as they called it, the mayor's office, the governor's office, all those people respected what Dorothy Bolden had to say.
Yes.
Because she could back up whatever she was preaching, she could back it up with bodies. She could deliver those women.
Right.
And they learned to respect her.
Well,
Well,
October 13th in Atlanta is Domestic Workers Union Day, which is Dorothy Bolden's birthday. And the reason I'm so passionate about this is because my mother was a maid.
Right.
And I look at what Dorothy Bolden did and see that she emboldened women. And I get so excited because she literally had no problem walking up to your face, and she didn't care who you were, and telling you what you needed to do for the Black community.
Listen, well, there's another person who had no problems getting in your face and telling you what she wanted and what the community wanted, and that was Eartha Kitt.
Oh,
And
yes.
I so admire her for being so bold and using her voice on her platform and walking directly into the White House, getting in Lady Bird Johnson's face. She was invited to talk about, among other things, about the criminal justice system and juvenile delinquency. And when Eartha Kitt had the microphone, she went on ahead and let folks know that the Vietnam War was the cause for why kids, boys in particular, were involved in crime. And I just want to read some of the words that she actually said. She said, "You send the best of the country off to be shot and maimed. They rebel in the street, they will take pot, and they will get high. They don't want to go to school because they're going to be snatched off from their mothers to be shot in Vietnam." And I so admire her for what she did. And she ended up losing.
Yes, she did. She was blackballed.
A lot. She was blackballed,
She's blackballed.
And the FBI created a dossier. Look at this video.
After the luncheon, 3 weeks later, I was supposed to open at the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles. And I called the agency to go over the contract to see that everything was so and so and so. And they said, "What contract?" And that's when I began to realize what is happening. Has my popularity waned? What did I do wrong? Have I done something wrong? And that's when I began to realize that I wasn't able to get work in the United States. Not because they didn't want me as an artist, but they didn't want the CIA or the FBI on their doorsteps.
The crazy thing about it is that's still happening right now today. As soon as you speak your mind, either for something or against something, people instantly act the exact same way that they act towards Eartha Kitt. It's like they instantly want to blackball you or hate against you, or as they say, cancel you because of a thought process or whatever that you may have.
And so she ended up going and pursuing work out of the country and wasn't able to come back into the country to work again for many, many years. And then, of course, had a triumphant return on Broadway.
We had a list of celebrities when there were times when we needed celebrities to be present because they added a lot of alluring moments to a public. And we had lists of people we could call. And Eartha Kitt was always on the list. And Eartha Kitt and Nancy Wilson and Lena Horne, and the list is very impressive. Those people came, and one time we were looking for Nancy Wilson and couldn't find her. And the reason we couldn't find her is that she heard about the strife down in Alabama. She was already en route.
I know that's
About
right.
that.
We didn't have to
How
call her.
about
She
that?
was on the way.
And they do not get credit
No.
for the way that they open that door. You're absolutely right. We could go and stand in front of a microphone and maybe people won't listen. But a celebrity stands in front of a microphone and they are a part of that ecosystem. They create this moment that allows reporters who are also a part of the ecosystem to document what is going on and show and create a paper trail of how things are changing and how they need to change.
One of my favorite examples of women in the movement is Ella Baker. And And she's one of my favorites because she was so consistent and disciplined about having a role that didn't include being a charismatic leader. Like, she was not ego-driven at all. She was purpose-driven and she was process-driven. And she organized and taught others that if you empower people, the people don't need a leader. They can lead themselves collectively. What we need to understand is how to be collective and purposeful, but you don't necessarily need a leader in a movement, not someone who's charismatic or becomes a target. You know, Martin King the Jr. was murdered because he bore the burden of being so visible. And so I've learned that the movement that continues, the Black Lives Matter movement, has taken Ella Baker's example and created a organization that doesn't necessitate hierarchy and doesn't necessitate charisma of one person bearing that burden. And it's difficult because, you know, there's not really a formula for how to run an organization that way. But a lot of what we learned from Ella Baker. And I admire her, and her book is amazing.
When I think about what's going on now with the Black Lives Matter movement and how those sisters, just Patrice Cullors, and how they all created this moment where they showed that, you know, the fight is not over, and leading as an example of women who stand up and say, oh, no, we're not going to take this. This is not over. Yes, this is a hashtag, but there's a person behind that name, and you won't disrespect us like this. This system cannot continue the way that it's going on now. And those women do not get the credit that they deserve. And I understand the beauty of saying that you don't need a charismatic leader to stand on a podium in front of a microphone for things to get changed and done. But I do think that they deserve the credit for the brilliance of how they strategize and get things changed.
Well, I just want to use one quote because it ties in so beautifully here, and it comes from Dorothy Bolden, who did exactly what you all are talking about. She said, "We ain't Jemima women. We are politically strong and independent."
Yes. And we saw that in the Black Power movement, too. I mean, there were Huey Newton, but there was also Elaine Brown, and there was Angela Davis, who really organized the breakfasts for children in the community and arming the community against police brutality. And so the list goes on and on of women who really showed leadership, even though it may not have been in the way that we traditionally define leadership.
I was going to say traditionally, no, that wasn't it, but the women were so effective.
Yes.
And contributed significantly to the progress that we've made. But it's unfortunate that the recognition is not there, but while we were doing that, we didn't look for recognition.
Well, you know, there's a women's history museum that they're trying to build in Washington, D.C., and the Atlanta group just honored Xernona. But that's the reason they're trying to build this museum. And already online, they have a section devoted to women in the civil rights movement. Oh, wow. But they're hoping that in the Women's History Museum, there will be a whole bunch of stuff about the contributions made by Black women.
Yes. I have to tell you just how fulfilling this conversation has been. To sit at a table with a legend, to understand the impact that you had and how you used your talents, your abilities, your intelligence to work on our behalf is just, it makes my heart sing. And I only hope that each one of us at this table, that we could do just a tip of what you managed to do for us.
Oh, you're
an inspiration.
But you know what? Let me close by saying this, and then I'll be quiet. That we can live together, Blacks and whites. We can live together. We can work together. We can love each other. All we have to do is sit at the table of reasoning and come up with those unimaginable results to show you how simple it is. It will just wipe off the skin coloring and look deeper into people's souls and hearts
Absolutely.
and find out underneath the skin we're all the same.
Absolutely.
We can make a better world.
Yes, that's so true. I remember being a child and in elementary school and in high school watching the Trumpet Awards, and then I got a chance to intern at the Trumpet Awards, and it was so fulfilling and so formative to be able to see all the beautiful and lesser known accomplishments of people of color that you highlighted. I mean, the struggle continued and you continued to work.
Thank you.
Well, all I have to say is this beautiful woman at 87 years of age is still contributing, still fiery.
Yes.
But when I look at the history you've made, I also look at the history you're still making. And to me, that is the lesson I learned from you, that there's no such thing as retiring, that you constantly rewire yourself and you constantly find things that you love and things that you know need to be changed. You don't stop until it's changed, but you do it in beauty, you do it in intelligence, and you have a steel rod up your back where no one can tell you that you're less than, and that is a blessing. Xernona, thank you so much for being with us.
Yes.
You are the best.
Thank each of you.
Well, we have to go, but
You have to admit this video was very educational and it definitely put a smile on my face. They mentioned some great women that was very powerful, that did so much. People like Dorothy Bolden, Eartha Kitt, and you know how much I love Eartha Kitt. Nancy Wilson, as well as Ella Baker. I want you to continue to list in the comments and know that the names that you put in the comments, I want you to expect a video being done on them. Please be sure to like, share, watch more videos, and subscribe to the channel.